Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? Demigod Cole here, Dan, your host, and with me again, as always, is Z to the Ack or Zach. Um, Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying warm. People that are in Northeast U.S., man, stay safe out there. I think I saw something like they had 4 feet of snow or something like that. So, um, or they were gonna get that much. It just insane to me. So if you're in the
Wow.
Northeast watching us, be safe, praying for you. And those down in Tampa that got hit by, I believe, a tornado today. Thinking about you guys too down there. Stay safe down there as well if you're down there. Um, so guys, hope you're doing well. We just wanted to real quickly thank you guys for watching and tuning in every week. Those that do and those that watch us on YouTube, we really do appreciate it. We've got a good show for you tonight. And then near the end of the show, we'll kind of talk about what the next couple weeks look like on the show. As Zach and I have talked about multiple times, we're going to be trying to change the game a little bit and make sure that we're covering not just the NFL, but a little bit more. We're going to do a little bit of that tonight. But before we do that, before we get to those schedules and last week's NFL games and maybe a little bit of this week's NFL games, Zach, I'm going to pass it over to you. And then if you could just transition us into the next one, we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Again, just to echo Dan, thanks for everyone watching, tuning in every week. We hard to believe it. We only have two more before 2021. So
Yeah.
this one is included, and we'll be back next Tuesday. But not to get ahead of ourselves, we got NFL and some NBA to touch on today. Hard to believe it again, but less than a week until the season opener for the NBA, I believe, right? 22nd?
Yeah, I believe it's the 22nd.
Yeah. So
Actually, the next time we're live will be
it
first
will be
games of the
opening night.
NBA. So, yeah.
Yeah. Which there's been quite a bit that's happened this off season. It was a short, quick, and fairly
Busy.
fairly active, yeah, fairly busy off season. Um but were there I guess just getting right into it, were there any big things that stood out to you off season here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the one of the big ones, and it kind of impacted I wanted to say the Colts, the Pacers a little bit was the Gordon Hayward one.
Yeah.
Boston being greedy again and losing out completely on getting something good in return for Gordon Hayward. Um, the Pacers were very much interested, and Gordon Hayward was very much interested, but they wanted way too much, and the Pacers were just like, "No, we're not giving you Miles Turner and another player." It's just kind of crazy to me. It's crazy to me to think that you let a player of his quality just walk and not really get anything in return for it. I'm seeing here that it says Boston got someone. Did Boston get someone? Boston didn't get anybody. They added Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson. I don't think that makes up for the fact that they lost Ennis Cantor, Gordon Hayward, and I mean those are the two big ones for me. So, and
Right.
I've watched a little bit of the Charlotte Hornets, and LaMelo Ball's been playing incredibly well. Gordon Hayward's going to need a little bit of time, I'm sure, to figure it all out and get used to it. But I think it's a big, I think that's a big addition for them. So I think Charlotte's headed in the right direction, obviously, with MJ in charge. He's had a couple rough years recently, but maybe with Gordon Hayward and LaMelo, he can get it kind of figured out.
Yeah, that's I guess for once seems MJ's kind of brought some promise to the Hornets down there in Charlotte. But I mean, Lamelo Ball was projected for quite a while to be the number one overall pick, slipped to number 3 in the draft. I think if I remember right, the T Wolves took Anthony Edwards, which I think just so happened to be their preference, and then blanking on the number 2 overall pick, but I think they were. Gosh, who was our number 2 pick? Was
Um, It wasn't Lonzo, that's for sure. The
No,
number 2 pick was it was James Wiseman. Went to the
that's
Warriors.
right.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe the Warriors had the number 2 pick, but
Well, I had so many
obviously,
injuries.
right. So I think with the Warriors, obviously, I don't think they're going to take LaMelo Ball with the Warriors still projecting to be, almost arguably a title contender, and Steph Curry
Hmm.
running the show there. So they went with James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball slipped to number 3. So I think Charlotte's got some fun pieces down there. But the big one for me that stood out this offseason were the moves with the Suns, and specifically, obviously getting Chris Paul. Devin Booker is up and coming, arguably, one of the best scorers in basketball. You pair him with DeAndre Ayton, who was off and on the court with injuries last year, but looking to be healthy this year. And you add CP3 as a veteran coming off a highly resurgent year.
Hmm.
It's gonna be a fun team.
Well,
I-
they also added Etwan Moore, former Purdue standout, and also Frank Kaminsky, who was a big Wisconsin guy
mm,
in the Big Ten. I mean, adding Big Ten players is always a good idea when it comes
right,
to your team, for sure.
right. Um, yeah, I mean they're gonna be good. They added Jay Crowder, who was a big piece on the Miami Heat in their deep run. They did lose Kelly Oubre, who is a fantastic player. He went to OKC in the trade, but I think ended up in Golden State. But I'm excited to watch the Suns. They're going to be a fun team. Um, I think you talk about big threes in the NBA, and you kind of take a look at the Suns, and they have 3 good to great players at your main 3 kind of key positions, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, and then a big man. So
What do you think Brooklyn's gonna do this year? I mean, they've obviously got KD, they've got Kyrie,
yeah,
they added Jeff Green, they added Reggie Perry, who they drafted. Um, Steve Nash is the head coach over there. What are your thoughts?
yeah.
You think KD will? I remember there was what was the text you sent me a couple weeks ago? Max Kellerman is calling LeBron James, or not, is calling Kevin Durant the next king or something like that.
I think it was if he wins a title in Brooklyn, he would enter the greatest of all time debate.
Yeah. So
Which,
you agree with him? You think he's on drugs? Like what? Where do you think Max Kellerman sits on
I
that?
man, I mean, the Golden State, KD to Golden State was just, to me. I mean, people will feel different ways on this one, but to join a, what was it, a 72-9
Yeah,
team, and then go win a championship the next year. I mean, yeah, he's got a trophy sitting in his house now, but
I think he has two.
it 2, I believe now. Yeah, but after that season, he had a trophy, and great. He won a finals, won 2 finals, but I don't know. That just there's an asterisk for both those for me. So yeah, he could go win a third with Brooklyn, technically on paper, but um, the first 2 just, it's not like he necessarily carried those teams. I mean, it was a historic team that adds arguably one of the best players, maybe the best player in basketball, depending who you ask. And sure, no doubt they're going to win a championship
Yeah.
when you do that. But he's over in Brooklyn now. I think I don't know if he's going to enter the GOAT debate if he wins one, but I think this will certainly help his resume a lot, and kind
Hmm.
of shut up maybe someone like me who discounts his Golden State championships by arguably, kind of taking the lead on this team. He's got Kyrie, he's got some good role players, but if Brooklyn is to win a championship, we're going to need to see really a just MVP season from Kevin Durant. 30 points a game,
Oh, I was thinking 40
um,
points a game.
40. James Harden didn't even do that last year, putting up like 40 shots a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, they've got a interesting team. We'll see how they mesh. Steve Nash, I love that hire for head coach.
I do too.
They got Amari Stoudemire, old Steve Nash teammate, as an assistant coach. So they've got a lot of experience on that team, coaching and players.
They also have Mike D'Antoni as well.
And the coach of Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash as another assistant coach. So,
and that's another reason why Harden wanted to go to Brooklyn, although it seems like that's not going to happen because they want either Kyrie or Durant.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not happening.
I guess jumping into that, because obviously that's a huge story still. I guess we're kind of getting breaking news actually tonight that, there's some talks between the Sixers and Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Rockets are going to want Ben Simmons in any sort of trade back to James Harden. I just saw that the Sixers are saying, nope, Ben Simmons is part of our future. He's not going anywhere. So the Rockets are at a bit of a stalemate. I don't think the Rockets, they have time to deal James Harden. So I don't think the Rockets are going to settle whatsoever, before the season starts in the next week here. I think they're going to play this out. They're going to, maybe let teams get a little more desperate. Like maybe the Sixers are on the bubble, maybe Brooklyn's on the bubble, and then they're like, all right, we'll toss in something a little, to make you pull the trigger. But there's a lot more teams, I think, also that might be more realistic landing spots. We've seen Miami, which might, in my opinion, be the most realistic spot, and Milwaukee potentially. I don't know how realistic that one is.
I don't think that one's realistic at all. I don't think Milwaukee has the trade pieces that they would be like, oh yeah, let's do that. I mean,
yeah, but we've seen that name out there, and then obviously Philly and Brooklyn. It's such a haul. I mean, he deserves such a haul. James Harden does, and they're asking for so much. I just don't see another team dealing another superstar for James Harden. But when it comes to Miami, the reason I said Miami is Tyler Hero.
Yeah, that's the name I saw.
Postseason. And I think if Miami were to put that name in a package, they wouldn't have to give up Jimmy Butler. Probably not Bam Adebayo, but you put Tyler Hero in there.
Couple picks.
Some picks. I don't know, Goran Dragic maybe. And it might just be enough. To get him. But it's all speculation right now. Who knows? He could play out the season. See.
So one of my favorite parts of the NBA offseason so far has been, I don't know if you saw this, but Bleacher Report does those Ask Me Anything segments, and they had our favorite father of basketball players, LeVar Ball, on there, Mr. 2 points a game.
2.2, I think.
Yeah, 2.2. And one of the key, honestly, man, you got to give it to LeVar. Man, he speaks his mind. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He just speaks his mind. And one of the questions someone asked him was thoughts on LiAngelo getting waived by the Pistons. And here's his response. Think about that. Any other person says this, they're blackballed from probably the sports. I definitely have thoughts on that. The people in Detroit are great. I love the fans, but the franchise over there is raggedy as hell. They don't know a good player. I was giving them a lottery pick for free. Has the skill to play and the notoriety to bring everybody to the game. How do you throw that out the window? They're going to learn the hard way. My boys are going to end up playing somewhere. Jello can shoot the lights out. That was raggedy what they did. But hey, they're going to learn the hard way. It just makes me, man, as he always does, he just makes me laugh. and it's one of those things that is really interesting. And it'd be interesting. He keeps saying that his boys are going to play together. I believe they never will. But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's tough.
Lonzo's contract's up in I think a year or two with the Pelicans. Do you think it is possible that Michael Jordan might say, you know what? Lonzo's got talent. LaMelo's got talent. Let's bring Lonzo in, and hell, let's bring LiAngelo, and what weird names, by the way.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles, the Ninja Balls. You know, you think it could happen? You think all three of them could actually ever be on the same team?
Yeah.
And do you think it would be successful?
I think that's the question. I mean, it seems like sorry, getting it mixed up now that you brought all three in.
Lonzo.
Lonzo and LaMelo are too similar of players. Um,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
they're kind of the same position as well. Neither of them really shoot the ball very well. So I think you put both of them on the court, and in this day and age with the NBA, I mean, you got two guys there that are probably 30% 3-point shooters. Um, I don't know how that plays out. Apparently, I don't know much about LiAngelo, but apparently he's a really good shooter. So
Uh,
maybe,
he got kicked off of UCLA's basketball team because he's stolen China when they were there.
yeah, yeah. But I could see LiAngelo teaming up. I just don't see Lonzo and LaMelo, given that they're both good players. I don't. I just don't see them ending up on the same team. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe later in their careers, like, they all group up. But I mean, it'd be a show. I don't know if a front office would want to deal with that. If you know, you already saw it with the Lakers having just Lonzo on the
Mm-hmm.
team, and
Yeah.
you basically get wanted slash unwanted PR from the dad every night.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's going to take a lot for a front office to want to take on all that.
All righty. So you got anything else, or you want to hop over to the NFL?
Yeah, just real quick on. I guess we gotta touch on just the Lakers before we hop over to the NFL.
Okay.
Obviously champions, bubble champions. Um, but I was surprised at how well they retooled um, this offseason. I was talking to my brother a lot during that bubble postseason run with the Lakers, and the Lakers were. I really felt, as kind of convincingly as they won the championship, I felt like they were just hanging on by a thread as far as their team composition around
Mm-hmm.
LeBron. I mean, they had the two of the best players in the NBA, but you take a look at the rest of that team, and I mean, you had Rajon Rondo shooting threes.
Yeah.
Danny Green was shooting like low 30% from three. KCP was really the only one who could make a shot, other than LeBron and AD. And you were relying on those two guys for 90% of your production. Um, and I didn't think it was sustainable. They made it last just long enough to pull out a championship. But kudos to them this offseason. They add former six man of the year, Dennis Schroeder, who is
Yep.
coming off a career year with OKC. The six man of the year from last year, who they stole from their rival Clippers, Montrezl Harrell. Wesley Matthews, who's a pretty solid two-way player, can knock down some threes. Marcus Saul, who is a former defensive player of the year, not quite that guy anymore, but um, can dish the ball from the center position, can also hit threes from the center position. And
Quinn Cook. What good
yeah, Quinn
defensive
Cook.
player.
Um, they did. Yeah, Quinn Cook can fill some minutes, but obviously re-signed LeBron and AD, so they retooled, and that was, I think, what they needed to do. I was a little scared that they would just re-sign Rondo, re-sign KCP, re-sign Markieff Morris, who they did, but not really do anything. Um, and they still have Kyle Kuzma, who people are kind of waiting for him to take a step forward. So if he does, the Lakers are even more dangerous.
Yeah. I as we're gonna talk about, we're gonna do those season predictions here, and I think we said 4 weeks, so a month from
Mhm.
now. So the season will be in swing for a little while. And guys, this is kind of a precursor um, to that episode, and we're talking about this because we're gonna get to that point. Um, for me, the Lakers, I mean, they got to come in as favorites. For me, just not to give my predictions away at all, but I think the Lakers are going to probably be my favorites again, and mainly because they have Anthony Davis and LeBron James. I mean, I think both those guys. I've said it before. I'll say it again. LeBron James is, if not the greatest player of all time, he's arguably the greatest player of all time, and Anthony Davis is up there in not in discussion of greatest players of all time, but he's in the top 25. He when his career's over, he could be in the top 25 of best players that aren't the
Yeah,
greatest of all time. So,
he's just so skilled.
yeah, he's
Um,
just a beast.
there was a just a final thought on that before we switch over. Saw a little blurb from, I want to say, maybe 5 years ago or so, from Kobe Bryant, and it was, according to what I read, it was to his GM Rob Pelinka, who I think is still the GM
Hmm.
for the Lakers. Um, but it was talking about Anthony Davis, and it was basically like, if you ever have the chance to get that guy, go get him because he has everything you
Yeah.
need: athleticism, footwork, size,
Well,
knockdown shot, um, defensive capability. So
I mean,
they got him.
the biggest question we had with him was, can he stay healthy? That was the biggest question we
Yeah,
had. And last season he stayed relatively healthy. I mean, I think he missed one or two games, or a couple games there, but for the most part, he stayed relatively healthy. And I mean, look what he did.
yeah.
I mean,
That's that's really the only question with him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Alrighty. So moving over to the NFL. I mean, this is going to be a little bit shorter of an episode this week. Um, kind of talking about kind of takeaways. So right now, playoff picture wise, we've got the Chiefs and the Steelers are at the have already clinched playoff spots in the AFC. Packers and Saints have already clinched spots in the NFC. Bills, Titans, Browns, Colts, and Dolphins are all in the hunt currently. Rams, Washington, Seahawks, Bucks, and Cardinals are in the hunt for the NFC. And then there's 8 teams on the bubble for the NFC and 4 teams on the AFC. So, just going down the list, what's kind of, I guess I'll start. My biggest takeaway from this past weekend, one of my biggest takeaways from this past weekend, and I think you'll talk about the other one, is just how close that Kansas City Dolphins game was. I know they lost, but you're talking about Kansas City being probably the best team one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL right now. Takes the Dolphins 33-27. Dolphins almost won this game. And that to me is a scary thing for Lamar, and really a testament to how well the Dolphins are playing. I mean, Tua had 28 for 48 for 316 yards and 2 TDs and 1 interception. They had no run game. It basically was a Tua show, and he's showing that he's there. I mean, I feel like if you're someone that's looking to get into the playoffs, if I'm the Steelers and I'm that second overall seed, I'm worried if I have to play the Dolphins week 1.
Yeah, that's it's not a great matchup for whoever has to go up against Miami. They're a team that's getting better every week. Just, they're so young. I know Miles Gaskin was out this week with COVID, but I mean, they've got a great running back in him, good receiving threats. Tua is making strides every week, and a competent defense. So, uh, we'll have to see if they make it into the playoffs. I mean, that's a big question. But I mean, putting up a fight against the Chiefs like that, uh, it shows they belong. So,
Yeah.
um, they'll be. I feel like we've said this a lot with a lot of these 6 and 7 seeds coming into the playoffs, but I think there's just a lot of good teams this year. I think the floor of a lot of these teams is higher than years past. I think we've seen less of a kind of top heavy
Hmm.
conference. I mean, you got the Chiefs, but I mean, you throw the Bills in there, Titans, Colts, Browns, arguably, Dolphins are up and coming. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good teams. You look at the AFC, and same thing with the NFC. So um, it's going to be. I could see some upsets in the playoffs coming up.
Yeah. It's as a Chiefs fan, you're not. I'm not. As a Chiefs fan, I wouldn't be worried. Obviously, you obviously have the number one seed right now. You're not too worried about that game, and I think they have a pretty easy schedule the rest of this season. Uh, but it was just interesting to me. It's interesting to see the Dolphins play as well as they are
Yeah,
against the Chiefs. It just yeah, it's just Patrick Mahomes had a great game. He was 24 of 34 for 393 and two TDs, but he had three interceptions, and that
yeah,
also
I
begs the
heard that.
question for me is obviously you have a lot of it. You never won an interception, but does he have a little bit of Russell Wilson in him? Could he potentially go on a streak here where yeah they won the game? That's great, but he had three interceptions and they did almost lose the game. Um,
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting to me, and I'm a little disappointed in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 16 carries for 32 yards. That's pretty freaking pitiful. I don't care who you're playing against. I know he's a rookie,
Yeah.
but
Unfortunately, I mean, the questionable move of them bringing Le'Veon Bell in, who hasn't done anything, but sometimes we talked about this I think in a few episodes ago with younger running backs, and I think it was with the Colts.
mhm.
And a fumble, and you yank him out of the game, and you have him sit the rest of the game, or you know give him half the carries next week. I It's just a odd move when you draft someone as high as they did, with Clyde Edwards, Hilaire, and then you bring in kind of an old veteran. I mean, it's just what is the team saying,
Yeah,
kind of, indirectly to Clyde Edwards Hilaire. So you just wonder about that.
yeah.
Um, but he's a talented back. I think they'll right the ship. The Chiefs. I mean, they're still winning, but I think they'll kind of kick it into gear here and get ready for the playoffs.
Okay. Where
Yeah.
you? What was kind of your one of your standouts?
Um, let's see. I think the big one for me, I think this will be the third week in a row touching on it, but the Steelers.
That's exactly what I thought you would say.
Yeah, I,
That's why I didn't bring it up.
yeah. I mean, we had our in our title last week. Steelers overrated. You guys can check that YouTube video out
Nice
from
plug.
last week, but yeah, yeah. But the Bills. I thought the Bills would win this game, and they did. And then you take a look at the Steelers, and they just don't look like that 11-0 team that we saw a couple weeks ago. And the Bills were kind of their first stiffer competition that they've faced really since like the Titans, like halfway through the season.
Yeah.
So um, I could honestly see the Steelers getting knocked off by someone like the Dolphins, first round of the playoffs. Um, Big Ben looks.
Old.
We kind of we're talking about this. Yeah, he looks old. His throwing motion looks different, and it looks. I mentioned to you, it looks almost like Philip Rivers, who Philip Rivers has always thrown that way. He makes it work. That's just his throwing form. But when you go from Big Ben, who was a big down the field thrower, to now almost looking like you throw the ball like Philip Rivers, is odd. You kind of wonder about, is there an injury? Is there
Yeah.
kind of what's going on? But I'm concerned about the Steelers, and I'm pretty high on the Bills. I think the Bills and Josh Allen have a lot going on. I think they're the second best team in their conference by far.
I think the big thing with the Steelers, and we've talked about this before, is their defense. If their defense is playing well, then they're gonna play well. And the biggest problem here is they lost Bud Dupree. So
Yeah.
that's like the Colts losing DeForest Buckner, or you know, or Brian Urlacher, the Bears losing Brian Urlacher. That's a great example of it. Or for the most part, the Seahawks losing one of the Legion of Boom. It takes, from that standpoint, someone's got to step up. And when I think about that Steelers defense, the person I think about who should be the one stepping up is TJ Watt. And he's not doing it. He's not taking that next step. He needs to take that next step. But on Sunday against the Bills, he had one tackle and one assist. That's just not good enough. You're a linebacker who has to step into that role, and you have to change the game. And he's just not doing it. He's not doing what JJ would do, where JJ would say, you know what? Screw it. We're going to get him out of here. And he just didn't. And the other problem that I'm seeing with the Saints, or not the Saints, the Steelers, is they don't have a run game. Even James Conner's came back, and James Conner was averaging 1.8 yards a carry. While you and I talk about the confidence of a young running back, right? And we want to make sure that we're not killing the confidence on a young running back. The same thing can be said about a veteran running back. But it's the opposite. If a veteran running back isn't getting it done, quit giving him the ball. Get it to someone else that is getting it done. Because Benny Snell ran for 3 carries for 14 yards, and Jalen Samuels 4 for 15. That's a 3.8 and a 4.7. That's almost twice as much. No, that's twice as much. Both of those guys had twice as many yards.
Benny Snell, we talked about him last week. He had like 1 point something yards per carry. So yeah. I think their running game as a whole is just a mess. And I think, isn't James Conner only in his like
fourth year? I think it's his third or fourth year, and he had, I believe he had cancer or something. He had some a disease like that, or illness like that. I guess the way I kind of look at it, and I kind of agree with Frank Reich a little bit with what he said on this, and when it comes to running backs is, and it comes to any player, you have to feed the hot hand. So if Benny Snell isn't a hot hand one week, get someone else in there. Maybe James Conner is. James Conner is, give him the ball more. But if James Conner isn't getting the job done, get to somebody that is, until they aren't. And the Colts are a great example of that. Nyheim Hines has a great game. You fed him the ball. Jonathan Taylor didn't see the field. Jordan Wilkins had a great game. Neither Jordan Taylor or Nyheim Hines saw the field. And then Jonathan Taylor comes back and has an amazing game this last weekend against the Raiders, and plays his mind out, plays out of his mind. You got to feed the hot hand. And right now, I don't feel like the Steelers are doing it. I think their play calling is lacking. I think their run game is lacking. I don't feel like Big Ben can make the throws that he needs to make. And their defense is hurting without Bud Dupree. And I completely agree with you that I think they are a first round out by far.
Yeah. I think you just, about 2 sentences there, kind of encapsulated everything perfectly. So,
and they may not have a home game.
Yeah,
because
that's our hot take. First round out for the Steelers, one and done.
That's not my hot take. My hot take is they don't have a home game. They don't win their division. I really don't.
Browns are gonna catch them?
Yeah, I don't think they win the division. They have to play the Bengals this week, and they're in Cincinnati. If Cincinnati's defense can show up and Bengals quarterback can do anything, they've got a chance against the Steelers. Then the Colts go to Pittsburgh, and then they finish the season in Cleveland versus the Browns.
Yeah.
And if the Browns win that game, they win the division. If
I
it's
could
tied.
I could see the Colts beating the Steelers and then the Browns beating the Steelers in that final game of the season for the division. I could see it.
Bengals have to win. Bengals have to win this week against them. They're going to Cincinnati. The Bengals defense isn't terrible. It's not great. It gave up 30 points.
The Browns just have to make
to
up 2
Cowboys.
games, right?
3. They got to make up 3. Browns
I
are
see the loss column. Yeah.
Browns are 9-4. Steelers are 11-2. So they got to make up. They got to win. They got to win out. So maybe my hot take is that the Steelers don't win their division. That's my hot take, and that may be a Stephen A. Max Kellerman take, but at the same time, the way they're playing, no run defense, no defense at all. It feels like no run game, and you're relying on Big Ben to win the game for you. I just don't see it happening. I just don't.
Yeah, that is fair. I think there were a couple more big standouts. Maybe 2 other big ones. I'm at least intrigued about. What else do you have?
So my big one, I've got to talk about this a little bit, and it's not because the Colts were playing them. It's simply the Raiders. Basically they've lost 3 of their last 4. Should have lost 4 of their last 4.
Yeah.
And one of those losses would have been to the Jets, and the Colts easily handled them. I just don't think the Raiders, I don't think they're, you don't know which Raiders you're going to get. That's the problem, because you have the Raiders that can beat the Chiefs and almost beat the Chiefs. And then you have the Raiders that just get blown out of the water by the Colts because they have no run game and they can't do anything. And I think we talked about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we talked about the biggest disappointments. And I think my biggest disappointment has kind of changed from the Chargers. Obviously, there's still a big disappointment, but realistically, they're not going to be a playoff team, obviously, this year. They've already clinched, I think, the 5th pick in this upcoming draft. I'd say my biggest disappointment has to be the Raiders. Because you look at their roster, and they've got good players across the board. They've got players that can make plays. Nelson Aguilar's not a bad wide receiver. Darren Waller, freaking Renfro. They've got Henry Ruggs, Josh Jacobs. Like, on their offense, they've got players. They've got LaMarcus Joyner. They've got, they've got a young defense, Vic Beasley, Maurice Hurst.
The Raiders are kind of turning into what the Browns were earlier this season to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just inconsistent and below expectations.
Yeah,
really.
That's kind of my opinion on it. But I will say a happy note for the Colts, and something that's made me happy is Jonathan Taylor getting 150 yards rushing and 2 TDs, averaging 7.5 yards a carry against that defense makes me happy. And for the second week in a row, T.Y. Hilton playing really well, 5 receptions for 86 yards and 2 TDs. We're finally seeing Phillip Rivers get some rhythm with his receivers and mainly with T.Y. And that's going to be that's huge for him. T.Y. if T.Y. has good games, you've got a good chance of having it. And shout out to Rodrigo Sanchez for his cancer surgery, and it looks like he potentially could be playing this weekend. So looking forward to having him back, because he's probably one of the best punters in the league right now. Hopefully we don't have to use him, but if you need to, it's great. Glad his surgery went well. Glad he's coming back. So that's kind of my big one.
The last one for me, just to lump these 2 together, but I want to shout out the NFC East and kind of wonder if we were wrong about the NFC East, or we just had the wrong teams that we were. I mean, the Eagles aren't in any sort of playoff contention, but knocking off the Saints, arguably, I think most people will consider the best team in the NFC, and then Washington with a couple big weeks here in a row, knocking off the 49ers, kind of taking that division, um, taking the lead there really in the NFC East. But I mean, both those games, kind of big wins for the NFC East to kind of reverse their the thoughts that a lot of people have had on them.
You know, we were not wrong on the NFC East. They are the worst division in football. Plain and simple, they will continue to be the worst division in football. A few good wins does not make up for a season of, for lack of better words, a steamy pile of dog crap in the front, in the living room.
Yeah.
You know, the way that I look at it, Taysom Hill, not a bad game. Saints defense didn't live up to their billing this week. I'm not worried. I think that they obviously are now the 2 seed in the NFC. But even being a 2 seed, currently they're predicted to play the Cardinals. The Cardinals have to go to New Orleans. Again, there will be fans in the stands. Some, even a 2,000 fans in that stadium are going to be a lot of noise and is going to be difficult. And I'm going to still stick by my, I think the Giants end up winning this division still. And the reason I say that is Alex Smith had a leg injury this past week when they were playing the 49ers, I believe. And I think he really was that heart and soul of that offense. And you have Dwayne Haskins that's going to be coming in. He has a lot to prove. So, you know, it could be interesting. That could be interesting. He could get the motivation that he needs. But I still think the Giants have let's see here real quick. It's kind of my next hot take. The Giants have to play the Browns this week, the Ravens, and then the Cowboys. So they're going to probably lose 2 of those games and win 1 against the Cowboys. The Cowboys, who aren't in the playoffs at all, probably have to play the 49ers, Eagles, and Cowboys. They probably lose all 3 of those games. The Eagles have to play the Cardinals this week in Arizona. They probably lose that game. And then they finish the season against then they have the Cowboys and then Washington. They probably lose 2 of those games, I would assume. And then Washington's final schedule, they play the Seahawks this weekend. And then they go to the Panthers, or the Panthers come to town. Sorry, Seattle comes, then the Panthers, then the Eagles. So they relatively win maybe 1 of those, maybe 2 at the most. So I still think NFC East-wise, I still think you're going to have a team that's 7-9 with a home game in the playoffs. And potentially a 6-10. I still think that there's a possibility that we have a 6-10 with a home game.
Yeah, it's possible. Washington loses out. Giants win out.
Or Giants win 1 and lose 2.
Or 1, yeah.
And Eagles can win 2. And they may be 6-9-1. You know, it's like at this point, again, the NFC East is the worst division in football. I don't care who, what, where, when, and why. They're the worst division in football. There's no one worse than them. Period. For me, at least.
I mean, I would agree. I think they're salvaging at least some of the reputation.
Now, if they get into the playoffs, okay, so they're a 4 seed, right? So 4 seed, whoever they get, say everything else holds. Say everything holds. They've got to play Seattle, unless Seattle gets beats the Rams, which is possible. They could have a better record than the Rams. So let's say, so they're either playing Seattle, the Bucks, the Cardinals, or the Rams. If they can win that game, I'll give the NFC East some credit. If they can beat the Cardinals, the Seahawks, or the Bucks, or the Rams, if they win one game, I'll give them some credit. But I just think against good competition, I mean, we saw it with the Giants. There's no way the Giants repeat that against the Seahawks. There's just no way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, still a division up for grabs, so it'll be at least entertaining to follow. But I mean, Drew Brees. Just touching on the Saints here really quick. Drew Brees is set to be back potentially this week, maybe the week after. We'll see. But I want to see. I'm a little down on the Saints, I think, versus most other people. And I'll be paying really close attention to how Drew Brees comes back and what he looks like, how healthy he looks, and if some of those early questions about his arm strength were more injury related than maybe arm related. So,
I mean,
that'll be a big headline.
They play the Chiefs this week, so that they need him. And that could be that's a big game for Kansas City, and that's a big game for the Saints. We're talking Green Bay has to play Carolina, so that's not a big thing for them. But if the Saints want to hold on to that first seed or get that first seed, they're going to have to do that. And the Packers play they play the Titans next week, and then they finish with the Bears. It's likely that they get that, they could lose to the Bears, and they could lose to the Titans too. So Seahawks want to keep this up. They need to get ahead there. So
yep, I agree.
All right, guys. Well, that's for this week. I think so. Real quick, before we move on, I want to just kind of give you guys a preview of what we've got planned for the next couple episodes. So today we obviously talked about the NBA offseason, a little bit of the offseason, and then we talked about the NFL. Next week on Tuesday, starting at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, we're going to be talking about the NFL, and then talking about the potential college championship games, conference championship games that we had, and maybe making some predictions on who our best four are for the playoffs, and kind of where that goes. And then on the 29th of December, Zach is going to be out of town, so we're going to have a really good show for you though. Zach's going to be out of town, but I have a good friend of mine. His name's Brian. He's a big soccer fan. He's going to actually be joining me, and we are going to talk soccer. So we're going to talk Premier League and Champions League, and it's something that you guys haven't really seen before from us. Zach and I will eventually get into that, I'm sure, at least some of that. But Brian and I are going to have a special episode and really talk about the Premier League, Champions League, Bundesliga, and kind of where things are in those and where we think they're going to go. And with the January transfer window opening up for them, that's kind of like trade deadline for football and stuff like that. I think there's going to be some really good, interesting conversations that are had around those topics. And then from there, the week after that, on the 7th, that show will start at 7:30 as well. We're going to talk about the NBA season. We're going to give our predictions. We're going to talk about the college football playoffs. By then, actually, we'll probably be talking about the championship game. And then week 1 of the NFL playoffs. That will be the week before. And then the last episode after that, we'll be talking about kind of reviewing the college playoff bowl games, the championship game, talking about the NBA and talking about the NFL playoffs. So really appreciate everyone who's checked us out on YouTube, who've been in the stream. If you have questions, feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and give us those. We'd love to have that. We want to, again, make this as enjoyable for you guys as it is for us. If you haven't already liked the stream or followed the stream, please follow the stream. If you haven't already subscribed to YouTube, drop that subscribe on YouTube and click the bell and help support us here. Again, we want your feedback, and it's free. Following and subscribing on YouTube, subscribing and following on Twitch are free. And you can come back for more episodes. Again, if you have questions in the future, let us know. Be happy to answer those in the chat. With that being said, I'll pass it over to you, Zach, and then I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, man, you covered everything there. We do want to emphasize though that we got a lot of good content coming up, a lot of different content. So, if you're not the biggest NFL fan, the past 2 months or so of our episodes have been almost strictly NFL. So we're gonna start getting into some other stuff, and as you see these episodes, leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see the most, and we'll make it happen.
Well, guys, thanks again so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And stick around for the next one.